Another 930,000 Americans leave unemployment in a week as Trump economy continues rapid recovery. But will the virus get in the way? Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the Trump economy is again on a rapid rebound. You saw more than 8 million people return to the labor force and get their jobs back after 23 million people had lost their jobs at the height of the pandemic in April. In May and June, 8 million came back. And so that trend is continuing in the month of July. We are looking at the week of July 11th, where 930,000 Americans again have returned to the labor force off of unemployment benefits. And this is certainly, I believe, great news. But the question lingers as the virus now is under a temporary spike. Is that going to slow down the economic recovery? So let's take a look at some of these numbers here. Again, we're looking at unadjusted data from the Department of Labor, where it shows you the initial claims coming in under a weekly basis, and then how many people are coming off of unemployment benefits on a weekly basis. And there's a lag between the continuing benefits data and then the initial claims. So for initial claims, for the week of July 18th, you see 1.37 million Americans initially came on to unemployment. The week before that, July 11th, is the week that we're going to be talking about, where on an unadjusted basis, 1.5 million people initially went on to unemployment benefits. But the same week, 930,000 Americans came off of unemployment benefits on a net basis. So you went from 17.3 million Americans on unemployment down to 16.39 million. And so that net difference between negative 930,000 and 1.5 million on the initial basis tells you that about 2.4 million Americans actually found jobs and 1.5 million people lost their jobs. So the net wash there is negative 930,000 people coming off of unemployment, which is certainly, I believe, in the right direction. This is where we want to be going in terms of the numbers, and where we want to be is in a situation where the virus is kind of abating and going away, and the number of people are going to continue coming off of unemployment, and people are eventually going to get back to their jobs, and we're going to get back to normal. But this is a long slog. Now, the states that had the biggest returns to the labor force were California, Florida, and Pennsylvania, with 217,000, 223,000, and 141,000, respectively, leaving the ranks of the unemployment. So if you look at insured unemployment for the week ending July 11th, you can see state by state. Here's Florida at 200 and almost 223,000 people coming off of unemployment. Here's California at 217,526 coming off of unemployment. Here's Pennsylvania at 141,130. Other big gains in the job market come from Michigan, where 98,747 left unemployment, as well as Georgia, which saw a pretty good drop in unemployment. 96,890 people came off of unemployment in Georgia the week of July 11th. So this is, there's still a lot of volatility, though. Continued claims had actually jumped the week of July 4th, as many Americans came off extended pandemic unemployment assistance, and then they went on to regular unemployment assistance. But then the drop in unemployment continued on its weeks-long trajectory, and you can see that measured here, not seasonally adjusted insured unemployment from July 14, 2018 to July 11, 2020. And that's clearly going on a nice downward trajectory there. And we want to continue to see that happening. But I believe it's going to be predicated on what happens with the virus, and if we're going to see another big resurgence this fall in September and October as the cold and flu season comes back. Our state's going to start shutting down and going on lockdown again. That's a big question. Now, since the week ending May 9th, unadjusted continuing claims for unemployment have dropped from 22.8 million all the way down to 16.4 million the week ending July 11, an overall drop of 6.4 million. And then we've covered this previously, that the Trump economy in May and June added between 7.8 million to 8.8 million in the establishment and household surveys, respectively, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That many jobs, so about 8 to 9 million jobs in the past 2 months. And I believe with this number that we're now seeing out of the Department of Labor, where 930,000 people came off of unemployment benefits in a week, we're going to continue to see that being measured in the month of July, where millions of more Americans are expected, I believe, to return to work. Now, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, this is the organization that has been telling us about hospital resource usage, as well as how many people are estimated to have daily infections with the COVID virus. And today they're saying there's about 115,000 people who are probably contracting COVID-19 on a daily basis. But this is way down from the peak of about 250,000 at the end of March. And so I believe that we're definitely in the right direction here. And they're saying that the virus is pretty much, its little spike right here is peaking right about now. And then it's going to drop all the way until about October, they say. And then we're going to start to see a spike up again in October with the cold and flu season. And they give you three different projections here. One is for the current projection, where we are now. Another with mandates completely easing, and then universal masks. And so we're somewhere in between those two universes. We're not going to have universal masks according to the IHME projection, but we're also not going to have fully eased mandates. So somewhere in between, not everyone's going to wear a mask. But, perhaps you should. The president says if you wear your mask, you're being patriotic and you're trying to protect your fellow citizens. So that's something to keep in mind here, where the health experts and the CDC, the Department of Health and Human Services, the White House are all saying, you should wear masks if you're at work or you're going to the store and things like that. You can help protect people. In case you sneeze or something, it's going to slow down the virus a little bit. But we're nowhere near where we were. We're down 53% from the late March peak of 250,000 cases a day. They're putting daily deaths at about 850 a day, and that's down from 63% at the April 17th peak of 2,300 deaths per day. So that's also good news, where again, you sort of peak in about mid-April, the number of people dying from the virus, and now here we are today, and they're saying about 860. This is getting updated on a daily basis. And so you'll notice that other reporting will show like there's more than 1,000 deaths per day, but it's not considering how many people die over the weekend where it's not being tabulated. So you see kind of these peaks and valleys on a weekly basis from that data. What IHME is doing here is smoothing out that data and giving you a rough estimate of how many people are dying per day. Again, we're not where we were. You're down about 63% on daily deaths, whereas the number of cases is down 53%. So the difference there is that treatments are improving, cures are getting there. I mean, hopefully we get a vaccine, but with the treatments and cures that are now being made available, the death rate is actually dropping. Now, here's a caveat on how this may be impacting the economic picture. 2 weeks ago, IHME was only estimating 80,000 new cases per day. And so the rate of reopening, I think, could see a pause the second half of July into August. And so that's, I believe, going to impact the jobs numbers when daily new cases are expected to stabilize and begin dropping through the end of September. A slowdown of reopening may slow down the economic recovery. Now, another headwind could be if Congress, as it considers extending unemployment benefits, whether they're going to take away the disparity where many Americans, not all Americans, but many Americans on the lower end of the income scale are making more money on unemployment right now than they were making at their jobs. But President Trump said on July 21 that he's going to address this in the coming legislation for Phase 4. Let's take a listen to that.
Unemployment insurance, how much below $600 are you willing to go? And you said that the economy is bouncing back strong, so why do we need to even cut it at all?
Well, the economy is getting stronger, and I think we have a chance to have a very strong economy, especially if some of the things that I just spoke about work. We want to have people go back and want to go back to work, as opposed to be sort of forced into a position where they're making more money than they expected to make, and the employers are having a hard time getting them back to work. So that was a decision that was made. I was against that original decision, but they did that. It still worked out well because it gave people a lifeline, a real lifeline. Now we're doing it again. They're thinking about doing 70% of the amount. The amount would be the same, but doing it in a little bit smaller initial amounts so that people are going to want to go back to work, as opposed to making so much money that they really don't have to.
So that's where the White House position is right now, and I believe they're still negotiating that. So we'll have to see the devil's in the details of about the Phase 4 legislation. But that could be another headwind that will prevent people from coming back to the labor force even quicker than they otherwise would, as if the unemployment benefits pay more than what their jobs would pay. Now, the biggest adjustments in labor markets could be coming in September, as many but not all schools begin some form of reopening. So even if not all the schools reopen, and particularly those in big cities, but out in the suburbs and in rural areas, as those reopen, then you could, I believe, can see even more Americans returning to work on a net basis. Again, at the height of the pandemic, we lost about 23 million jobs, and so we've gotten back about 8 to 9 million of those. And I foresee that as schools reopen, that you'll see an even quicker recovery economically. Now, the speed of the recovery seems to be surprising almost everyone except for President Trump. He was predicting on March 25th a rapid recovery. Let's take a listen to that.
We want them to use the money for the companies and the planes or whatever they may be helping to get over this rough patch. And I don't think it's going to end up being such a rough patch. I think it's going to, when we open, especially if we can open it, the sooner the better, it's going to open up like a rocket ship. I think it's going to go very good and very quickly.
And so, like a rocket ship, President Trump has been predicting a rapid recovery all along, particularly as we, get to a situation where the virus is not nearly as deadly as it once was, and certainly we're not seeing the rate of infection like we were in March and April when the virus peaked. So you see a lot of headlines right now about record numbers of cases. It's not true. The amount of testing that we're doing right now is much more so that you can confirm more of the infections that are actually occurring. But the peak was clearly based upon both the curve that IHME projects for estimated infections in late March, and also for hospital resources usage. We're not using hospitals and ICU beds and invasive ventilators as much as we were in April and May when the hospitalization was peaking. And we're going to see a bit of a bump right now through about mid-August in terms of hospitalization, but we're not nearly in the same rough patch that we were in the spring right now. So anyone saying we're having record cases, record hospitalization, regionally in certain hospitals, that might be true, but nationally, I'd say that the worst is past us and that we know a lot more about this virus right now, and we're just not going to see the rate of infection. People are taking more precautions that we saw in the spring when this thing was washing over us. And we're certainly not going to see the rate of death that we were seeing back in the spring when this virus was peaking. So hopefully the cold and flu season will be a bit more merciful than it was, I believe. That's what IHME is projecting, at least in the initial go. We'll see how this thing, once you get to December and January and February, where this virus is. Hopefully we have a vaccine by then, but don't count on it. Now, the numbers, at least for the economic recovery, are proving President Trump was right about how quickly it could happen. And I believe action taken by Congress for payroll protection for small businesses is playing a large role in that, because that employs millions of Americans, the small businesses of America. That's the backbone of the U.S. economy. But the sustained recovery is probably going to require states to find a way to safely reopen, especially if everyone's hopes for a vaccine don't pan out the way that we're hoping. The truth is, there's never been a safe, effective vaccine for coronavirus in human history. They've been, not for SARS, not for MERS, not for the common cold. There's never been an effective vaccine for coronavirus. So if we get one this time, it'll be the first time. And I'll leave you with the close here, meaning the president, Congress, and state governors need to be preparing the American people for a reopening scenario where there might not be an effective vaccine in place. The truth is we cannot stay locked up forever, no matter who wins the election in November. We need to make certain that as we find a way to mitigate the risk of the virus, the cure is not worse than the disease itself. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.